Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Everything Dodgeball podcast. I'm your host, Stefan Leitinger, and today I'm joined by Ashley Elders. Before we get into the episode, I want to give my sponsor, Reband, a little shout out. If you need new knee pads, new tape, or any other braces or sports gear, definitely check them out. And with the code LIGHTINGER10, you get 10% off your order. That's LIGHTINGER10 for 10%. And if you need new knee pads, there is nothing I can recommend more. I've been trusting them for many years now and will do so in the foreseeable future. And their tape is also really good, and it's cheaper than many alternatives and also holds up very nice. So check them out. And without any further ado, let's jump into this episode with Ashley Elders. I've seen her at the Vienna Calling a few weeks ago and was just really impressed with her gameplay, her athleticism, her energy, and also that she's just wearing her glasses on her forehead constantly, which I think gives her a few percent extra energy. And so let's jump into it. Ashley, tell me a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, of course. Yes, hello. Thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited to be on here. So my journey actually dates back to a few years ago. I started playing dodgeball back in 2021, like super recreationally. I played in this league in the YMCA, and after that, this guy, his name is Sean, he was like, "Hey, like I'm gonna create my own league. You should join it. I want you to be a part of it." And I'm like, "Absolutely." He started the league. It's called Nutmeg Dodgeball, and I instantly became committed. At first, I hated it because I'm like, "What is this organized dodgeball? Like, why is there so much strategy? Like, why is everyone being so patient? Like, why can't we all just throw the balls and be hectic?" But he actually like taught me a lot of the strategy. He was like, "Nope, like these are positions. You got to be patient." And I slowly, with each week that I went, I developed my game. And like many other people, you become hooked. So I became hooked. And I started playing in that league, did that for a year. And then he was like, "You know what? Like, you should travel. Like, you should come to tournaments with me. Like, you're pretty good." And I'm like, "All right, like let's do that. Let's go for it." So I started traveling, all within the states, and I started to like get my name out there, free agent around, and eventually by the end of that second year, I got picked up by a team, and we actually created a team, as we all now know, Flex. And ever since that journey, I play, in tournaments all throughout the weekends. I play during the week. And I try and get as much gameplay in as much as I can. But yeah, my history dates back to a few years ago. But I actually didn't start to play cloth so I started playing dodgeball around 2021. I didn't play cloth until 2023. And it was funny because I had some, voices in my ear saying, "Hey, like you should try out for the team, like put your name out there." I'm like, "You know what? Like, yeah, let's go for it." So I put my name out for cloth. Never even knew what cloth was, by the way. I had only played foam and no sting up until that point, but I was like, "Yeah, if I could play these two, I could play cloth." And I remember it was a Austin, Texas round, and I saw cloth for the first time. And I picked the ball up, and I'm like, "What is Like, what is this?" It was just a strange thing, much bigger, different texture from everything that I had known. The gameplay was different from everything I had been taught. I'm on the court and I'm like, all right, like I'm just gonna go with the flow here. We're gonna try it out. And I loved it after that. It was very different, very unique. And again, I was hooked because it was so different from the other style of gameplay that I had been used to playing at that point. And I love something about me is I love a challenge, and cloth for me was an immediate challenge. How to grip the ball, how to, read the game on the court. And so unfortunately where I'm from, we don't play a ton of cloth. So I was only able to get that cloth gameplay in by going to those tournaments. So the second time I actually had ever played cloth was our nationals, and then after that I had made the team because I was a quick learner, and I'm very grateful for that. But our first Team USA big competition was only my third time playing, and I still didn't even know all the rules at that point. I'm like, put a ball in my hand and let's go. But yeah, that's my cloth journey. I've been playing a little bit more established for about 3 years now. So it's been quite a journey, but I've enjoyed every step of the way.
Okay, that is absolutely awesome. So 2021, starting dodgeball with foam and no sting, and then sort of falling into cloth and
Yes.
still liking it. So you're a really true dodgeballer by heart. You just love throwing balls. Apparently, it doesn't matter what the fabric is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to me a little bit about like the transition from foam and no stink into cloth, and also how it was at that time in the USA that it was possible for you to jump that fast into the national team.
Yeah, so I'll be very honest with you. Like when I played a lot of no sting and foam, the gameplay is just a lot different. I do think cloth is a fast-paced game, but the strategies are ultimately completely different. And so I actually had to rely on my coaches at the time to give me a lot of good like feedback. I had to rely on a lot of my like teammates to give me feedback, and I had to work on my own mechanics here like home. So unfortunately, being in the states, we live in all parts of like different states all throughout the country. So a lot of my teammates, I live on the East Coast. I'm one of the only ones that are on the East Coast. Everyone's on the West Coast. So
Okay.
I'm forced to really have to like train and develop my strategy here, not with my teammates, but with, my friends and the people that I've built a life here with over here. And so I started doing a lot of my own training on my own. I have a track, maybe about 5-10 minutes away from me. And when I started doing originally was I got my hands on a cloth ball. I'd go to the track, I'd do some sprints, I'd run, and then I'd started throwing the ball at a net. At the time I had a partner, so that partner was there to like help me out. So I would throw the ball at them and they'd help me train. But I really worked on those core mechanics of like the grip strength aspect, how to throw the ball, how to be more accurate, and then also with running, throwing a heavier ball, having that fatigue in you as well. So I really had to break it down and train outside of that on my own individually so I can show up on the court. And then when I was on the court, I relied on my teammates to kind of give me feedback, live in action, coaches, et cetera, to be like, hey, like you need to be a little bit more passive here, or hey, you need to take this throw here. I started off more as a middle player because I did have quite of an arm, but I slowly transitioned my way as a corner just because I felt like, I was better suit there. And so I started training more as a corner as well. So it's definitely been a path leading up to where I am now, but it took a lot of independent training because I don't get that training as a team, unfortunately, here in the States.
Yeah, that sounds really intense, and like you really know what you're doing and really enjoy the process of training and getting somewhere. So what's your athletic background and
Yeah.
what prepared you to like sort of train on your own and also have that mentality of improving so fast?
Absolutely, yeah. So I have a very extensive training background. If we go really far back, I was actually primarily just a basketball player, and I was so dead set on basketball. Like I was like, I knew this was my dream. I'm gonna be at 5 feet five tall. I'm gonna be a WNBA player. And
Love it.
then, but unfortunately, right around my junior year of high school, I tore my ACL, and that completely shattered me. I went through that like heart injury that I don't wish on anyone, but I was out of the game for about 9 months. And so when I returned, I just really, it wasn't the same for me. I didn't have that same like passion. A lot of the offers that I wanted at the time, they fell through. So I transitioned a lot of my focus on track and field. And I ended up being a shot putter and a discus thrower in high school, and I did pretty well. But I really wasn't at the level where I was like scholarship level. So I had met this coach. He was Division 2. He was starting out the program, and he's like, "Hey, I can't offer you right now, but come join my team. Like, come be a part of my team, and like, let's see what happens." And I'm like, "All right, absolutely." So I kind of took that like impulsive, "Hey, let's go for it." So I actually went to school. It's a school in New Hampshire, Southern New Hampshire University. It's about 2.5 hours away, but I was so nervous. I was the only person I had known going to this university, but I'm like, you know what? Like, life's about chances. Let's go for it. And so I went, and I'm just like this shy little freshman kid. I had this like knee brace on from my ACL repair, and I'm like, you know what? Like, this is my college debut. Like, I'm ready to go. And I'm not kidding. These coaches completely like rebuilt me. The second day, third day on, I had a conditioning coach. He looked at my knee and he saw the brace and he's like, get that off. Like, you don't need that. Get it off you. And I'm like, all right. And then, time goes on, we're hitting the weight room, and I didn't even know how to do a squat at that point. Like, I had to physically be taught how to squat. I had weight on the bar. They took the weight off, and they were like, your form doesn't look good. We need to start from scratch. And so I had to start from scratch there. And by the end of my freshman year, I did very well. I threw very far, and I was actually second leading in the conference of like the division that I was competing in. And at that point, my coaches saw a lot of potential in me, and they gave me a full ride. They were like, you know what, you earned this. This is for you. And so what I started doing was I started hitting the weight room. So we learned a lot of weights when I was in, that freshman year, a lot of Olympic lifts, power lifts, and I became hooked automatically. So I was the kind of person to not only am I trying to be successful on the field, but I wanted to be successful in the weight room. I wanted to be the strongest person in that gym. So I started really, really becoming more dedicated to my lifting. And I even kind of took mental note in. So by the end of my collegiate, um, you know, um, I don't want to say year, but out of my 4 or 5 years that I spent there, I left there. I ended up, fortunately, being an All American. I ended up, I recently was inducted to the Hall of Fame, but all of that was due to great coaches who built me physically and mentally. And so when I officially graduated, it was COVID. So nothing to do, like scratching, twirling my thumbs for a few years over here. And that's when I started to really get into powerlifting. So a lot of what I learned as a collegiate athlete, I took with me and I started to do on my own, and I got into powerlifting, and I started to see some incredible results. I was benching, 225. I was repping that, squatting 400. Like, that was my thing. I wanted to be as strong as possible. I wanted to compete. I was all natural. And right when I was like starting to get to that point where I wanted to compete, I found dodgeball. And I really was like, and I'm like, whoa, like this sport is actually really cool. And so after that first year, I'm still lifting heavy, but I'm playing dodgeball. I realized that a lot of my physical goals didn't align. So while I was strong on the court and I was big and I was muscular, I was out of breath, I was out of shape, I really wasn't conditioned. And so the minute I realized after that first year playing, I realized I wanted to take the sport more seriously. And so I said to myself, if you want to be a little bit more successful in the sport, you have to get a little bit more lean. Keep your strength, that's fine, but get a little bit more lean. So I did this thing, it's called 75 hard. And basically, it's like you have to do 2 workouts a day. You have to drink a gallon of water a day. You have to eat a healthy meal. You have to take a progress picture, and then you have to like read a certain book. I didn't complete it to the full 75th day, but I got about halfway through. But what I started doing was I got up at 5 a.m. in the morning. I'd do my cardio. I'd go to work. I'd get my lifts in. I'd play dodgeball, repeat. And I did that like for weeks, every single day. And it was very disciplined. It was the only way I knew how to stay on target and on goal for my personal goal. And I achieved it because actually, right around that halfway point, I made the practice squad for Team USA. So it actually worked out for me, believe it or not. But yeah, no, that's my athletic journey, and that's how I got to where I am now. So
Okay, wow. So I was impressed before. I'm even more
yeah.
impressed now because that is really quite the resume. A few follow up questions. So, first of all, I want to get back into your injury. Did you injure yourself during basketball or was it something
Yeah, no, it
else?
was basketball. So it was my junior year. It was I think my fourth game in, and it was 7 seconds into the game, which is absolutely insane. I
Fuck.
just got the ball, so it was a jump ball. This Our center at the time got the ball, passed it to me. I planted my foot down to grab it, pivoted, and then when I planted my foot, I felt a pop, and immediately
Mm.
pain rushed down, and from that moment on, it was like that was the end. So, yeah, 7 seconds into the game.
All right,
Yeah,
damn. How old were you back then?
I was 17. I was 16 or
17.
17. Yep.
All right. And before that, like you wanted to play basketball professionally. what was like your weightlifting routine, or was there any conditioning and weightlifting and stuff before that as well?
So I actually didn't start to hit the weights until around after that point. So a lot of the conditioning that I did was through like traditional basketball tradition conditioning, like suicide or I hope I can say this on pod. They're called suicides.
Mhm.
17s. Just a lot of ball handling drills, defensive drills. A lot of times where I was off season, all my other teammates were off season. A few of us that didn't have like a fall sport, we'd play we do pickup. There was a fall league, so that was a lot of the conditioning that I did. However, after I tore my ACL, after I recovered from that, I asked my dad. I'm like, hey, can I start going to the gym with you? And he's like, absolutely. My dad was similar build as me, a little bit taller, but big beefier guy, and he loved the weights. And I'm like, let me try. So he actually introduced it to me, but I really didn't bulk or get bigger and like more serious
Mhm.
until I got to that collegiate level. But my dad really was the founder of my weightlifting. So yeah, that's how I really got into it.
Okay, interesting. So, because I'm a
Mhm.
physiotherapist, so I'm a bit interested in that whole subject. Because what did you do during your rehab, and why didn't you hit the weights during that?
So I honestly, that's a really good question. Hitting the weights back when I was in high school, it wasn't like it was very, very minimal, if that makes sense. Like we did it as a team, like here and there, but it really wasn't like a consistent big thing that like we did. So a lot of my weightlifting that I
Mhm.
did, excuse me, was independent. So even when I was going through my rehab, the rehab that I was doing, it wasn't weightlifting, it was strength building for my knee. So I was doing things like single leg bird dips and hopping on the bike and then eventually like progressing to the treadmill. But it wasn't like I was, going to the gym and doing a leg press or doing a leg extension. It wasn't anything of that nature. I actually didn't really get into all of that until afterwards, which looking back, I definitely do think it could have been beneficial for me to kind of have more weightlifting during that time period. But because I was just more focused on basketball at the time, and the drills are a little bit more different, weights weren't the immediate thing that came to mind for me when I was younger.
Okay, that's very interesting because I would say like weightlifting. It doesn't matter which styles, and not obviously you don't need to jerk and clean or stuff
Right.
like that, but otherwise you need to build as much strength as possible in that knee, and so strength training is part of that rehab process, at least in my
Right.
head. So you said around 9 months was your recovery, and then you basically got into shot putting and that track and field stuff, and into the weight room.
Yes.
So okay, still like the rehab kind of confuses me, but let's leave that aside. That's more of a personal thing. But anyways, you definitely have like sort of an obsessive thing. If you get a sport that you like, that you go all in.
Yeah, I've it's a
Is that
that athlete mentality. Especially when you really start to enjoy it, you want to find all the best ways that you can get better at it. And I'm very much so that kind of person. I'm the kind of person that will stay behind and I'll work at it and work at it and work at it until I feel like I'm okay, right? So yes, and that's with a lot of many of the things that I've put my hands on sport wise. So
awesome? Completely feel that. But then I would be very interested. You came from a very structured and very like recognized sports, from basketball, then athletics and stuff like that, and then weight training, and then you get into dodgeball, which is such a new thing, and then you get into cloth dodgeball, which is even much more of a undefined sport, especially in the USA. So how was it for you to come from sort of really structured programs to such a new sport? And how did you find your routines and stuff like that?
the structure, I ended up building my own structure by finding my own consistency with at least going to league once a week. It started there. That was the foundation. So we had league on Wednesdays, every single Wednesday. And so I made it my ultimate goal to go every Wednesday. And it's funny because I transitioned into a new job back in 2024, And this was around the time where I had made the practice squad already, and it was actually Austria in Graz 2 years ago. And I
Ah.
transitioned into my new job earlier. It was that March up in that same year. And I remember interviewing, and they're asking me questions, and they want to know a little bit about me. And so I get through that point, and then I'm basically offered at this point, but I say I have one condition, and they're like, "Oh, like what's up?" And I said, I do have a trip planned to Graz, Austria. I did make Team USA. I said, this for me is, it's very important that I can attend this. Like dodgeball for me, I don't really ask for much, but this would mean the world to me. And they were like, absolutely, that's perfectly fine. You can do that. So not only was I able to go to Graz, but I was able to work into my schedule that I'd leave a little bit early on Wednesdays to go to dodgeball. So it started, that foundation started there. And so if I can build consistency with that, I started attending more tournaments. I started having like certain practices with certain people during the week. But my one minimum was Wednesdays. That was it. Um, so it is very new, and obviously it was very new for me. But again, when you are alongside people that have some knowledge or a lot of knowledge, I really relied on them. One thing about me is like when you've been an athlete for a long time, you're used to becoming coached, like you become coachable. And so for me, I didn't care who it was coming from. I wanted to be the sponge, and I wanted to learn as much as possible. I knew that I could work on my own physically by training and getting those reps in, but you can only do but so much alone, right? And so I relied on my those that I trained with in Nutmeg Dodgeball, and at the time, we would train, and they were actually really sweet. So cloth again isn't big in my state or in where I'm from. We're trying to develop it and make it more popular. But even more so 2 years ago, it was even less popular than what it is now. But there were quite a few nights where we would get a few of us together, and they would let me we would do 5 on 5, the most, it's no 6 on 6, but it's 5 on 5. And we would play, Sean got his hands on cloth balls, and we would just train and we would throw. And at least I had that, like, basic fundamental, like I had that with me. And at least I was training and getting those reps in. And then when I would travel to tournaments with my teammates, we would kind of train together in sync. One thing about flex is we play at USA tourneys, and unfortunately, we only get to play in a few cloth tournaments throughout the year. We only get to play in maybe two or three, honestly,
Mm.
and which I do wish it was a lot more. So our team Flex is built off of trying to be primarily cloth players. A lot of other teams that compete in premier tournaments, they have a mixture. They have foam players, they'll have cloth players, they have recreational players. But when Luann, she's the captain of the team, when she helped design Flex, she said, I wanted to be cloth based because we really don't get to train enough as is together. We don't get to practice enough as is together. So let's establish this team so when we do travel to these parts of the states, we can at least play together. So that structure also helped me a lot too, being able to at least fly, and when we're competing, we're learning as we're going. So all of that basically is how I developed my own, routine and my structure to where I am
That's great. You seem like a coach's dream. That is like perfect. Being coachable, so motivated and obsessive, and then it's obvious that you made such big progress in such short a time. And also with the circumstances, which I think is like probably your background and also strength training stuff, being used to doing a lot of training on your own and then bringing it to the team. That is really cool. And lots of people can take something away from that, I feel like. So, talk to me a little bit about the cloth situation currently in the USA, and then like make the transition to why you decided as Flex to come over to Austria.
Yeah, so cloth simply just currently right now is just not as common here. Is the most common ball type here. And as much as I love foam, I really love cloth, and I wish there was more of it. So what USA does is I'd say at the beginning of the year, at the end of like last year, like they'll release the upcoming tour dates for the entire year. So Tempe, Arizona will have cloth, and then maybe Denver, Colorado will have foam, or Minneapolis will have. So we'll know at the beginning of the year which tournaments are going to be cloth based, and as a team we'll prioritize those cloth tournaments as well. But again, it's only one or two, and then a lot of times other organizations or other establishments will create cloth tournaments as well. So Flex, if we see a cloth tournament that's available and that we can go to, we'll talk about it in the group chat. Hey, who can make this tournament? And that's exactly what happened with Vienna. So the tournament rounds were released. There was only two. There was um, a Tempe, Arizona round, and then there's a Dallas round that's actually coming up in August. So those were the two premier tournaments. So that's it. And so this is a big year for us. This is a World's year for us, and we're like, we simply need to play together more. So Lou, I know we wanted to go last year, but we couldn't make it work. So she had it in her mind for this year. So when she saw that Vienna, open registration, she was like, "Hey, like, who can attend this?" And all of us knowing that we need to play together as a team to build that chemistry, we're like, you know what, sign us up. So not every single player was able to attend, but we were able to bring a good amount of teammates. We had 10 total that we took to us with to
Mm.
Vienna. Um, and it was great. Very humbling, playing in Vienna, absolutely, but it's also the best time for us because we're learning. We need to learn, right? And here in the US, we're creatures of habit, and so it seems like we play the same teams over and over and over again, each year. So it's nationals, it's usually the top 3 teams. And while it's fun playing those competitive teams, you really don't learn as much when you're traveling, and we're traveling to Vienna and we're learning from different teams and different cultures and styles. And for me, like, that was huge. I am very thankful I went. I'm very glad I went. I learned a ton, especially I tried to hone in on my position a little bit more specifically. What am I doing wrong? How can I improve? And things of that nature. So we're trying to dip outside of our traditional tournaments that we go through by traveling more internationally or traveling to other places that are offering more. I know Canada, for example, they're trying to offer more cloth like circuit rounds. So that's been a bigger thing as well. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get to any of those. I do plan on going, but again, we're only offered minimal. So between being offered two just tournament rounds and then a nationals rounds, that's virtually only 3 tournaments in an entire year. So we have to look and find other ways to get that cloth in. And so that's kind of been our journey. It starts off with, okay, what are the USA Premier Tournament rounds? Okay, there's 2 or 3 here. Where else can we go outside of this that we can play? Okay, there's 1 or 2 here. What about internationally? Where can we go internationally to get this, more cloth in? So it's kind of like a sequence of starting with one, and then with the one we kind of build on that as well.
Mm. Crazy. Yeah, absolutely. Just a completely different world, because when you tell people from Europe that they should go and play dodgeball overseas, it just seems like a crazy thing to do, because it's obviously just a lot of travel, a lot of money, a lot
Yes.
of commitment, and obviously we're in a very different situation. We would probably do the same thing for foam,
Right.
maybe, if there are really, but obviously for cloth, we luckily don't have to do that. But and I talked with Armando before why he came to Austria and why he came to Vienna Calling, and he was like, it's not that much more expensive to go to Vienna than to travel in the
Right.
States. So for them, it just made sense. And haven't looked at it from that perspective, because to me, like in Austria, if we have to travel more than half an hour, we're like whiny about
Right.
it. So this is just complete different standards. So I think it's just awesome that there are people so committed that they travel half the world to play a dodgeball tournament. And I think there are lots of people outside our little bubble who'd say that is completely crazy, but I completely understand it. I went to Mexico
Right.
for dodgeball, and if I tell it to someone here, they're like,
Right.
"Why? Are you getting paid for it?" No, I'm paying for
Yep.
it. So yeah, I think it's absolutely awesome, and it's cool that you got a lot out of it. So let talk to me a little bit about, like, why do you like cloth? I don't really like the debate which is better, foam or cloth. It's just dodgeball, and I think if we only had one chance to play one ball type, we would love that ball
Yeah.
type. And since we have the luxury of having more ball types, obviously we favor different ones. But what's it for you that you enjoy about cloth?
From a physical standpoint, first, the bigger ball. It's more mass to it, a little bit heavy, and I personally love that. To me specifically, I like the strategy behind it. You have to be very disciplined in cloth. And I've learned very quickly that if you're not, you'll be punished, right? It's like that type of thing. And I still do and make some dumb mistakes, and eventually I will learn from them. Um, but I love the fact of how you have to find your strategy in that 3 minute time span, right? And you have to be disciplined. Foam, you can get by with a lot more things. You can be a lot more reckless. It's riskier gameplay. Yes, there's strategy, but balls are flying here and there. Where cloth to me truly is a puzzle, and it's a puzzle that I'm still working to understand personally, and I love the challenge of that. I personally feel like if there's a percentage of 0 to 100% of like truly understanding the cloth game at 100%, I don't even think I've tapped in close to 50 just yet. And that to me excites me about cloth because I want to be able to get there one day where I can feel like I've truly calculated all my decisions correctly, or I've, made the best throws, and I've made, where foam, it's like, ah, all right, like I threw the ball away, we'll get it back. It's so quick, it's so fast, balls are flying. Cloth, I throw a ball away, I'm like, oh, here we go. So it's like little things like that where I'm truly forced to be disciplined as a player. I also think it forces you to play more strategically with your team as well. You truly rely on your team and cloth, right? Because there's less balls. You have 3 minutes. It's all about survivability on the court, and people being on that court matters. Where in foam, you catch someone back in, they're right back in, and it seems a little bit more endless. Where cloth, it's like a ticking time bomb where you have 3 minutes, you have to make all the right moves, and I love that. I really do. So between the physical standpoint of like the ball and like feeling good with being able to throw that ball, and there's empowerment there, and being able to be a part of a different strategy where everyone loves everything else, but you're a part of this like other strategy and you're all in on something different. And I don't know, it's just a different game to me. It really is. I wish I could articulate my love for it more so, if anything. But I think as any athlete, just being able to compete and feeling good at the ball type, feeling like you can really like learn and be successful, that to me keeps me hungry and like wants me to keep at it and like learn more and grow more. I also want to grow it more over here, right? It's not popular here in the US. The amount of times I hear people here in the U.S. that say, "Oh, cloth," and I get so offended. I'm like, you guys don't like it because you're not training, like you're not putting in a lot more of that effort. If you stuck to it, you would love it. You would, and I truly have that belief because that's what happened to me. So I think for me, just in terms of having that like hunger to want to get better at it, feeling like I am good at it, but wanting to become better at it, and then wanting to just make it more popular here, those are some of the reasons why I love cloth and like why I want to expand it and just keep at it. And plus, like I want to be able to somewhat get to a level of like where you guys are at. You guys to me are way up here. You know what I mean? You're at the throne, and for us, we're really trying to get things going here, and we're trying to spread it. And I don't know. I just it's a love for having something that isn't as common, and you want it to be more common. So all those factors alone are the reasons why I love cloth.
Okay, I couldn't agree more. I think you articulated it really
Oh, thanks.
beautiful, and it's a lot of I think about it very similar the way you described it, like what's important in the game. And then for me, another question to you is like, how good are you at foam? And because you're a very physically athletic person, and that is something, especially in the women's game, at least what I know from Europe, if you're a really athletic woman and can throw a ball hard, then you have a big advantage in dodgeball. And so in foam, it feels like you can do even more as a single player. As you said, in cloth, you really need your team and you need that strategy part as well. So you can be the most athletic dodgeball player, but you still need a team to win. Otherwise, teams can figure it
Right.
out and still punish you for everything. And so naturally, I feel like that people who are maybe as a singular person even better skill wise, they sometimes prefer foam because as an individual you can have more of an
Right.
impact. And in cloth, it's really hard to have that sort of an impact
Right.
athletically and tactically and strategically wise or something like that. It's the other way around, in my opinion, and I love the way you framed that. But like, why don't you love foam more? Because you are a very dominant athletic person.
That's actually a really good question. So fortunately, I can play both. I can play foam. I can play cloth. I actually don't really understand why I love cloth more than I love foam. To be honest with you, and I will always play. I actually just played in a foam tournament yesterday, so I really do involve myself in foam. Um, I think for me, honestly, it's just I don't know. I'm speechless with that question. I'm so sorry. It's a really good question when you really have to dig deep and truly understand. Um, it's just a little bit. Yeah, I guess the best way I can describe it is that when I was introduced into playing dodgeball, a lot of it was no staying in foam. So I was doing that, and I was cycling in for at least a few years. So I didn't even get introduced into cloth until like my second or third year in. And while I do love the foam game, I don't want to disrespect anyone. I think for me, it was refreshing to try something a little bit newer and something that I knew that I was pretty good at. A lot of people again don't want to put that like time and effort into like learning like how to hold a cloth ball, how to play it. Where I felt like with me, I think I got pretty lucky by adapting to that very quickly and adapting to being able to hold it and throw it hard. And again, like while I can do that in foam, it's even more different and you can stand out more doing that in cloth, right? And I think for me, there was some pride there in being able to say, I can throw a cloth ball, I can throw a cloth ball hard, I can figure this game out, I know I can do this, I feel like I can be successful at doing this. And that's probably not the same for just myself, but probably for a lot of my other teammates as well. Flex has this run in joke. So last year we actually had a very successful year in foam. As a matter of fact, our first tournament we played in last year, I'm pretty sure we got second place in cloth, and then we got first place in foam. So there was this run-in joke. Oh, like Flex is a foam team. We're not a foam team. We're confined to playing foam tournaments, and we're forced to having to adapt to foam. Well, we were primarily prefer to like playing cloth. So in all reality, I think for me, while I do consider myself to be good at both, I think I naturally just gravitate towards cloth because of the complexity of it. Here in the States, it's seen more as a complex sport here, more complex ball type here. And I think I love the idea of having that challenge, where people are like, oh, like that's too hard for me. I'm like, oh, no, it's not too hard. Like, it's building the reps in. Like, you got to play, you got to learn. Um, it really doesn't go beyond that. I think foam is just faster, and I do enjoy playing it. If I didn't enjoy it, I just wouldn't. But preference wise, if cloth were offered more here, I would 100% choose that route.
Yeah, well, very interesting, and I love it. Still think very well articulated. So because I feel pretty much the same about it, and I think for me it also makes sense since I'm coming from a cloth background and now I'm playing a little bit of foam, and as you said, I enjoy it. I really enjoy playing a little bit of foam. I don't get as much of a chance to do it, but then again, also the same hurdles you have for cloth is there's just not so much availability, and also like the playing level is not at that point where cloth is in Austria or Europe, so it's just not that intriguing
Right.
currently. But it's just so different sort of mechanics, different game style, which is something that is really refreshing. And when I play a foam tournament, the first two games I just completely enjoy it and have to get used to it as well. But it's just fun what you can do with the ball and what you can do individually. But then, at least, especially at our level, it still lacks the depth
Right.
in Austria, especially. And when I see really high level foam, it's
Right.
awesome. It's absolutely cool. It's very athletic. It's very fast paced. So I think I would definitely enjoy that a lot to play at that level. We just don't have that yet here, but I would definitely like to experience it. But still, when I see it, for me personally, for my type of player, cloth is just much smarter because I'm not that athletically gifted and I'm just more of a cerebral player, and I can have more impact, I think, on the cloth field. So when I see people like Eli or Shoda or don't know who else I've seen highlight clips of. It's like what they can do with foam balls is so incredible to me, and is something that is definitely out of my reach and something that I know that I can't do. So I would love to experience that firsthand, but I think there is just also a player type that is much more suitable to foam than it is for cloth, or the other way around. So yeah. So let's jump a little bit into Vienna Calling. How did you enjoy your first international tournament with your club?
I loved it. Um,
Incredible.
I did, and so it's funny. So when we got there, Lou as a captain, like we didn't really know any of the other teams. Being the only US team, we were kind of going into it. We had an idea of which teams may be stronger. That was a complete misconception going in, because when we came there, every single team was very good. So I'm gonna say that right across the board. Respect to all teams that participated. It was every single game we played, every single match we played. It was highly competitive. It was incredibly fun. It forced us to have to really calculate, play together as a team, and think. It was, yeah, the talent incredible. So I will say that right off the bat. Um, Experience wise, um, I went there with the mission of just getting some international travel under my belt and getting some more experience in, and just learning something. And I walked away from that tournament doing all of that plus more. I now kind of have an understanding in my mind the kind of player that I need to be when I go to Thailand at the end of this year. And I hope I can get there, but at least mentally I've started there, and I'm like, okay, these are the things that I need to work on, right? Saving myself, valuing myself as a player on the court, being a little bit more like not passive but smarter in the corner. Like, so again, we talked about foam earlier. A lot of my foam gameplay comes out in cloth. Sometimes I get a little bit too
Mm.
fiery and I get too excited, and my team may need to like reel me back in, because again, the minute I release that ball, immediately I'm punished. And I felt like it's like a whole like classical conditioning experience where the dog like goes after something, they ring the bell, there's a reward. It's like that, right? Where with me, I kept doing the same things over and over again, and I'm getting punished, and I'm like, okay, so like I had to learn the hard way in Vienna, and I did, and I loved that. I love being able to play in different games where I'm forced to having to calculate and make different decisions. Um, and even as a team, we learned what worked well for us as a team, what didn't work well for us as a team. And we highlighted and we really emphasized communication before we played, after we played, and before our next game, because we really wanted to compete alongside with all the other teams that were there. So if anything, if I could say anything about that experience traveling to Vienna, I'm actually really thankful, and I don't say that lightly, because A, I got to meet a lot of people, but B, I learned a ton. And it's funny because I went to Graz 2 years ago, and I participated in Worlds, and that experience was a learning experience. But I actually believe that every time you travel and you play, you learn something a little bit more and more. And that's exactly what happened in Vienna this time around. I was able to kind of write down a list of things that I know I needed to work on. We talked about it. We actually had a debrief call out about our Vienna trip last week, and it was on like, I think it's like Tuesday night or something. But we sat down and we talked about it. We watched a little bit of film, and we were able to discuss certain things that were working, what weren't working, which we traditionally don't do as a team. Like Flex does not do that a ton, which we should do a lot more. Um, so I'm grateful overall for the experience. I'm super excited to see like a little bit of a snapshot of the talent that will be at Worlds. I know that's probably only a smaller fraction compared to many of the other teams that'll be there. But at least for me, I know that I have to play a little bit more differently. If I and my team and all of us, we all need to play a little bit more differently if we want to be more successful in the upcoming trip to Worlds. I actually tried watching you a little bit when you were in the corner, and I'm trying to learn more actually as a corner player, because our jobs on the courts, we have a very important job, and it's very specific and it's very niche. And I felt like beforehand there's times where I wasn't being that more like again like a calculated player. I was being more of that fiery player. But really, when your corners, you have a certain style of leadership on the court for your team. And I picked that up after like watching teams like yours and even a lot of the other like, women's teams and men's teams and mixed teams. I was just trying to really study how everyone played their positions and what worked for them. And I took all that in, and I'm thankful for that because now I can bring that with me here and I have that in mind now. So whenever I now play, it's something that I'll kind of will be a little bit of a reminder for me, as well. And then one last thing too is my coaches could not attend, but they were able to tune in on some of the games and watch. So after the tournament, they did give a little bit of feedback afterwards, which was also very helpful, because I think for them having that point of view watching it on screen versus being a little bit live in action, it's a little bit different, because they can kind of rewind things and say, okay, like this was missed, or you should have taken that shot. So overall, like, great experience. Even though our coaches weren't there, they were there, through messages, and they were giving us feedback. So honestly, overall, incredible experience.
Awesome. That is absolutely great to hear. And since you talked about the coaches, I know Brett is not the women's coach, but I think I line refed for you guys at some point, and he wrote me I shouldn't let you talk to me like that because we had some sort of interaction in the back line. So I was very impressed that he was watching the games, even though he's not the women's
Yep.
coach. So that was really cool to
Yep.
see. And also I got to see you guys a little bit, and I was really looking forward, and I was very happy that we had you with our women's in the group because I just wanted to see what kind of game you brought to the tournament. And it's like a little bit of a sad thing to me because I extremely enjoyed you guys watching the way you play, but I also know that that is not the most successful way to play dodgeball.
Yes.
And like we always try to figure out a little bit and get a little bit of that sort of what we call foam style, where you have a little bit more individual impact, try a few more aggressive or risky
Hmm.
things, but do that calculated and integrate it into the cloth dodgeball structure, because it's on the one hand it's really fun and it looks really cool, which is also very important for the sport, and but it's not that effective in cloth as you experienced.
Yes.
And the thing is, like, I really saw that fire, that athleticism, that fast-paced decision making, and just relying on your capabilities when throwing, when going for catches, but it wasn't yet integrated into a perfect structure for the whole team. So it was amazing to watch, and individually I was like extremely impressed, and I'm also a little bit like sort of afraid to see what it's gonna be when that is really brought together into a cloth structure. And it was pretty much the same for the men's team at the last World
Mm.
Cup, where we saw a lot of cloth players, which we saw even in 2022, where there was lots of individual skill, and they can catch better than us, and their throws are ridiculous and their movement is amazing, but they're still not used to the cloth playing style, and they're not used to getting punished for taking too much
Right.
risk. And that is what I see always with like non-cloth players who really rely on their individual skill and get punished for it. But once you make that correction and sort of make a symbiosis of both of those styles, I think it can really be the next level. And that is something that's very interesting to me. So that's why I also enjoy watching a little bit of foam and see what we can learn from that. And yeah, if players are really that dominant and that aggressive and can back it up and have a team to protect, wow, that is just, I think, the future of dodgeball. So I'm really interested what you guys gonna learn from that and bring to Worlds in Bangkok. And I think if you can really implement a lot of that structure, you're gonna be very successful, and we're gonna have a hard time competing with you, because I definitely saw a lot of raw diamonds there. And yeah, it's half a year now, so that's gonna be very interesting to see.
Yeah. And
Um, yeah, no, go
no, I was
ahead.
gonna say, either way, like, and we take every experience that we compete in, like, obviously we would love to see the results, but if we can take at least a few things that we learn together as a team, I think for us, like, that's our goal. So like when you said that, like, we really appreciate, I know I appreciate that, at least that you can see that and value that, because we feel the same way here. Like we know individually we have the talent, but we do the one thing that we do struggle with is playing like as a team, like in sync, right? Like when we look at other teams, the way you got like pump fake and just everything in general, it's incredible, like incredible. And we study it down. We actually watch it down to the foot movement because in our heads we're like it starts with the feet. It has to be the feet where you guys, so we're studying, and I'm excited to just continue to grow. That's my thing. It's just like let's just build, let's improve, let's find one thing we can improve on, and let's find another thing we can improve on, and if we can continue to improve, hopefully we'll get there, hopefully. But right now we're just trying to take everything in and learn as we go. So again, I really appreciate that statement. It's
Oh,
Yeah, I don't take it lightly.
cool. Yeah, that is awesome. That I think that's the perfect mentality to really go step by step, and that's like the real athlete in you that just knows how to take everything you get and try to implement it and improve step by step. That is absolutely awesome because there is no shortcut to it, and obviously you have all the fundamentals down, but it seems so easy if you watch it on film and you see the little mistakes you made and the gaps you have in your team, but that is actually, in my experience, the toughest part to really get out of your team, because teaching a player how to play dodgeball, how to throw, how to catch, and how to dodge is really
Right.
hard. But doing like the cohesion of a team in dodgeball is so complex in that there are so many different situations and you always have to act as a team. And the thing is, what makes dodgeball very successful in the club style is the boring work. And that is the faking, the protecting, the not throwing in certain situations, even though you would like to, the dodging instead of going for highlight catches and stuff. So often it's the thing that's not so fun that makes your team much more successful. And that is something that is really hard to teach. And I think that is something what people love about foam, that you can be way more expressive basically. If you're good at stuff, you can just play to your
Right.
strengths. And in dodgeball, you really have to clean out the weaknesses and the mistakes. And so I think that's just a different style of
Hmm.
mentality. And yeah, it just makes for different sort of training as
Yeah.
well. And to some it's more tedious. I personally love it because when it works, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. And like when you feel that the team is working and everything is synchronized and you can feel the gaps in the opposing team and you really apply the pressure, that is something, to me, that is what I love about the sport. And the highlight reels, they're always fun, but I always look at them and I'm like, pretty much 90% of highlight reels are there because people made some really, really dumb mistakes. So if you play great dodgeball, then you don't get too many highlight reels, or just the most incredible
Right.
ones. But most of them are just mistakes covered up by someone who is individually
Yeah,
gifted.
I agree
So
actually. That's a hot take, but I actually 100% agree. I do.
awesome. I have to clip that
No.
and send it out in some form. No, but yeah, I really like the way you think about the game, and I think that's gonna. It already shows a lot, and it also showed the progression throughout the tournament. Where when I saw you in the first and second game, there were still way more gaps than in the later stages. It just is really tough to on the fly really change stuff like that, and also like is that really train your or adjust your instincts where you're in a position where you're like, I want to throw, but you don't, or you have to really take everything into account and you're not used to
Right.
that, so that just takes a little bit of time and work and obviously team play. So yeah, awesome stuff. I really love it. So is there anything else that you want to add to about the tournament or what you experienced in Vienna?
I mean, Vienna overall, even just Austria overall, was absolutely beautiful. I will say that your country is absolutely amazing. I think just overall, it just makes me super excited to try and get to more similar tournaments. but also just makes me really excited for the end of the year. I know that, Team USA right now, we're slowly now starting to really pick up on having calls, and we're going over film now. And we've actually been using film from Vienna to like go over and watch. So those that didn't attend Vienna, they get to sit and watch some of our mistakes, which is fun. Uh, no, but really, that's the time to dissect, right? Why did this player make this decision? Why didn't this player make the throw? Why, and that's how we learn again, because we're from all over, all parts of the U.S. We're studying this film, but Vienna for us was a really good stone like tournament for us overall. Perfect time of the year, right in the mid season for us to really like start somewhere. We have the tournament, and then we can build off of that. So I again just thankful for the tournament that was ran. I definitely would love to go back in the future. Definitely a great learning experience, just because again we learned new things outside of what we already were used to doing. So I those are all my overall thoughts on the tournament. The teams were very nice, very fun to play with, and very good. And it's fun having a tournament where everyone is just up, the level is high, so just makes me excited overall for what's to come. And I'm thankful overall for the experience.
Right. I love the combination of humility, but also really seeing everything as it is and just being excited by the process ahead. So that is really cool to see. How old are you,
I'm
Ashley?
28. Yeah.
Okay, so still a lot of dodgeball to be played. And what do you do for a living that you get to travel and implement dodgeball into your life, which is quite a time intensive adventure?
Yeah, no. So ironically, I work in athletics. So I am an athletic supervisor. I oversee all of the athletics in a town that's nearby me, and I run basketball, I run softball, pickleball, all the sports. So typically, I do that throughout the week. I am very fortunate to have a coordinator that works alongside me. So he also assists me when I'm working during the day. He'll be there at night. So we're like a really fun little duo where we get to, tag team and work together. But yeah, I my life is surrounded by athletics 24/7, which I love. And I'm
Yeah.
very fortunate to have a job that gives, I don't have the ability to work remotely, but I do get a decent amount of PTO. So I fortunately, a lot of tournaments are on weekends, so I do a lot of weekend travel and I can save my time. And then I will save my big like a lot of my time for tournaments like Worlds or being able to go to Vienna Calling. So and my job is very supportive of what I do. Whenever I come back from a tournament, they're like, "How'd you do? How'd it go?" Some things of that nature. So it's fun to also be able to work in an environment where you feel supported as well. They support you on your goals. They support you when you need to make that time. So all around, athletics 24/7, I love it, wouldn't trade it. And it also gives me that flexibility to be able to travel as well.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it really shows. So I didn't know you obviously before, but since I got to experience your style of playing, it screams athletics all around. So that is really cool, and I think that is something, especially on the female side, we still don't have a lot of those real professional
Right.
athletes in the sport, at least in Europe, and it's getting way better. I've been in dodgeball now for 15 years almost, and I've been the coach of the Austrian women's team for the last around 10 years. So I've seen a lot of women's dodgeball, and it has progressed tremendously. And even the playing style, we were really known for being very athletic. Like the Austrian women's team was one of the first that was like really athletically dominant, and it took a time for the other nations to basically also get to that place. And now dodgeball, especially on the female side, looks way faster, way more athletic and stuff like that. So it's really cool to also see people who come from a very athletic background and have been training at a really high level to transition that into dodgeball, because it just makes it so much more exciting. And women's dodgeball is so exciting when it's also very athletic and people can throw the ball hard and take those even more risks than in the men's division,
Right.
because you have a little bit more time, a little bit more space, and if you can dominate that space, that is really cool to watch. So yeah, I just really appreciated watching you guys play, you especially. and especially with your glasses, which I still have to bring up because it definitely was way more astounding to me than it should have been. But I was just trying to figure it out what the glasses meant, and I'm still sure they give you 10% more energy. So since I've lasered my eyes now, I don't need glasses anymore. So maybe I'll put some on my head as well. Maybe get faster that way. I'll
It
try
might
that.
be a boost.
No, but that maybe. So I'll definitely have to give it a go. I need everything I can get at this point. So if it helps, I'm all for it. So a last part that I wanted to get into with you is your strength training side and background, because I've seen your Instagram and I was just really impressed with your numbers. So tell the people what your PRs were, what you're currently at, and how you sort of integrate training, strength training into dodgeball, because I feel it's not that easy. Because if you train really hard in the gym, it sort of debilitates, at least for me, the way I can train and intensity wise on the dodgeball field. So, how are you currently doing that?
Yeah, so actually, I can start to where I was and then where I'm at. So where I was, I was, I'm not gonna say my weight on here, but I was about 30 pounds heavier. So I was pretty big, at least for what my body was typically used to. Right around, right before I made the transition into changing, myself physically, I had benched 225 pounds for 4 reps, 5 reps, I think 4 or 5 reps. I was able to deadlift 400 pounds, and then I was able to squat 400 pounds. Completely all natural. However, in my head, and this is why I needed to make changes. I ate whatever I wanted. I ate a lot of protein. I ate whatever I wanted, but I did no cardio. So it was one of those things where I'm getting stronger and I'm getting bigger, and I'm seeing my results in my strength grow. However, if you had asked me to run a mile, probably would have taken me almost 20 minutes to go run that mile. So I really had to make the adjustment. I felt it on the court when I'm playing. I felt slow, and I knew I had the ability because again, I was a basketball player and I was fairly athletic, playing basketball. So I knew that I had the ability. But it's almost like wearing like a suit and you're wearing like weighted vests on you and you're trying to throw the ball and you're trying to jump and you're like, oh, I feel heavy. So what I did was I made the 75 hard adjustment. I lost about 30 pounds and my training differed a little bit. So I make sure to emphasize cardio every single time I lift. So if I'm lifting, I usually will lift first and then I'll follow up with cardio. I'm not the biggest fan of cardio. I have truly forced
I get that.
myself to be disciplined in doing it because I know it needs to get done. So I will usually try and lift about 4 times a week, and then I'll follow that up with cardio. I'll split my days. Right now, I do have more of a bodybuilding style of like weightlifting where you kind of break your body parts up by the day. So usually it'll be like back and buys one day, and then chest and tries another day, and then maybe you'll separate legs another day, and then it'll be abs and core, another day. But as we transition into, world prep, I do know the coaches gave us a training program where they want us to kind of, do some of those workouts that they want us to do, and then they also gave us nutritional like recommendations. So they want us to start kind of tracking a little bit more of like our macros. So that's going to change, and I'm going to look at that program and make some changes to it as well. But overall, like my thing with my lifting has just been trying to be consistent. There were a lot of times where late weightlifting for me has gotten me through some of the darkest times as an athlete mentally, right? Like if I'm not doing well on the court, at least I know that off the court I can train physically and build myself that way. So that's also my recommendation for anyone too, right? Like let's say you're having a rough day throwing wise, maybe you're not hitting, maybe you're not catching, maybe you're having a bad day, go to the gym, hit the gym, do something, celebrate yourself physically in another way, right? Like build yourself towards a PR or you know put some loud music in your ears and tune out the world for 2 hours, lock in that way. That's why I've always loved the weight room, because the weight room has always been there for me during some difficult times as an athlete, difficult times in life as a person. And my big thing is just trying to be consistent. If you can be consistent, and it doesn't matter where, everyone has to start somewhere. It doesn't matter where you are. If you can just get yourself to going, even if it's the smallest thing, go a couple times a week, build it that way. So for me, training for me is consistency. And I go through waves as well. Like right now, I've definitely dipped lower, but I am going to ramp up intensity right now because, again, I'm now getting back into that world's training prep. So I'm going to make some changes. And I'm going to get that consistency. But I think for me, that's why I've been a little bit more naturally successful, because from the time I learned about weights from when I was in college to where I am now, I've just made it a part of my routine for myself. Physically, I had goals, whether I want to be at this weight or this number or this PR. I've incorporated a lot of what I've learned in the past, and I've incorporated new things that I've learned, and I've been able to kind of, build that into my natural routine. So yeah, I mean, I've always been, a big fan of the weight room. I always try and recommend it to everyone else. Sometimes people will go to me and ask for, like, advice, or hey, how can I do this? I am not certified, so I will say that for the record, I'm not. But if I can give any sort of advice, I do try. But yeah, it's always been my passion. So, um, yeah, that's my background on weight training.
Awesome. No, that's definitely a very important and inspiring message, especially for the female athletes and also for the young female athletes. But because I think it just transfers so well to dodgeball, especially on the female side. If you can get that advantage and be stronger, then you're also going to be faster and throw a little bit harder. So, a slight follow up question: like, could you feel throwing wise when you were 30 pounds heavier? Did that impact your throw? Was it stronger, or does it like impact the throw when you get a little lighter?
I will say that. So, um, if we broke down a pro cons list, I will say that when I was 30 pounds heavier, I did throw harder. However, that was the only plus, I will say, that like really leveraged me. And when I tell you the difference in strength between then and now, it's not even that big of a difference. The only reason why I know I throw harder is because there's this video of me back in 2022, and I see it's like I look at myself and I'm like, whoa, like that's a completely different person. But I throw the ball, and that ball, I know just from the sound of it, I threw that ball really hard. And I don't know if I can throw it that hard right now. But if anything, that's the only difference. So I still prioritize being strong. I'm still benching. I can still bench 225. I can't do it for reps, but I can do it for at least one or two. Um, I did take out squatting out of my routine only because to me it impacted my knees a little bit. And as much as I try and wrap my knees, I've just put a lot of wear and tear on them. So I have incorporated other things aside from just like squatting. So that's another thing too. Like you can manipulate and do other things, that will help your body. So what I was doing before, I've had to make natural adjustments just because it was a lot of wear and tear on my body. You're trying to train heavy, lift heavy, and then you're going into playing a sport where you're throwing a lot. It is a lot on your body. And the rehab process is also important as well, because you want to be able to take care of it and play. Hopefully I can play for another 10 years. We'll see. um but yeah, it's my message out there for any of the females: absolutely, if you can get stronger, there's no shame in getting strong. There's no shame. Embrace it, and you will feel good, especially when you're throwing those balls. You don't have to get too big or bulky. You don't have to be the strongest person in the gym. You don't have to be, an Olympic lifter. But if you can incorporate that strength training into your throw, you are going to see results. I truly believe that 100%. Um, Side note, and I'm sure it circulates, but one thing about me is right before I play in a tournament, I'm banging out push-ups. I can bang out 10 of those, and it's become more of like a mental routine for me. But a lot of people they'll turn their heads and they'll be like, I can't even do one. And I'm like, you have to start somewhere, like get one, then get five, then get 10. But it's a mental thing for me. Like I'm locked in. I go to this side. I'm banging out those push-ups. I'm locked in mentally and I'm locked in physically. I'm warmed up. I'm ready to go. So that's my biggest thing. It's like there's no strength. There's no shame in the strength game. If you can do it, embrace it. So
Absolutely. Can't honestly can't agree more. Like you're putting my numbers to shame, so that's one thing. I have to go to the gym tomorrow or once my eyes are healed back up because I think the only way I think my biggest bench was pretty much around the same number, but I'm not there at the
right,
moment, so I don't think I could like 220 that is 100 kilo around that, so I don't think I can currently lift that. And with the squat, I'm way back. So my squatting is my best squatting was 160 kilos.
okay,
So yours is around 200 kilos, sort of,
right,
right?
yep,
That is incredible. And the only thing where I still got my pride is with deadlifts, which were 200 kilo at my best, but only for one rep. So that's a really true PR. But I think I really push also my younger players to go to the gym whether they're female or male. And I think it's really important on the one hand to develop that athletic performance and also just the strength transfers really well, but also from a rehab perspective or prehab perspective. The stronger your joints are, just the better your muscle coordination and strength is, the more tissue you have that can help you protect you from the strain of dodgeball. I think that is really important. Dodgeball is a really strenuous game on your body
absolutely,
from throwing repetitively at a high percentage also to the short stop and go movements and also like the way you throw yourself around the court basically, so
right,
a little bit of tissue to protect yourself goes a long way in my opinion. So I think to be resilient, strength training should definitely be a big part of a dodgeballer at a high level. So
absolutely.
that is, yeah, couldn't agree more. Love the message. So, what's left for us? I think that was really what I wanted to get into with
All
you.
right.
I'm really happy that we found the time to get a chat in.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to see what you guys bring to Bangkok and what how you advance the game. I hope we'll still be able to push against it, but I also think this is a good thing to take motivation if you're an opponent, someone from any nation, and listen to how much dedication and how much just energy you put and how much thought you put into your training and into your progress and how much patience and humility you have. I think that is so important for players and athletes. And I think that is something where dodgeball can still learn a lot because it is such a young sport with not a lot of athletic background. So I think the more we can implement that from the outside and other sports, the better it will get, and we'll see some of the results in Thailand, hopefully. So, is there anything left for you that you want to get off your chest or that you want to get into?
Honestly, the only thing I want to say is just thank you. I'm really grateful that you're allowing me to be a part of this and share my voice and hopefully spread this knowledge or anything in general out to the public. But just in general, like you specifically, I watched your leadership on the court when you were in Vienna. I actually remember you playing back in Graz. So just thank you first of all for your leadership and I see how you lead your clubs and your in your country, and I hope that the same thing can go over here. I hope one day I can do the same thing for the states and be able to be that strong leader. But just a big thank you to you. Thank you to all my coaches, my teammates, my family. Dodgeball is, like you said, a commitment. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of money. And I would love to get paid to do this, but unfortunately we're not there just yet. But I just, the more knowledge we can spread, I agree with you 1,000%. The more people we can get involved, the more athletes we truly can really elevate the game. And I'm right there alongside with you. I'm super excited to see the growth over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years at this point in time. The more specifically, especially in cloth, the more we can train and learn, the more elevated we will all become. So just thank you again for providing this platform. I've seen a lot of your other and listened to a lot of your other podcasts, and it's truly amazing that you're providing voices for athletes like us. So thank you for your time, and I'm super excited for Thailand and more tournaments as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. Really appreciate it. That is really nice to hear, and I just love the energy. This it really comes across as in your playing style, in the way you handle yourself in the podcast. There's just so much love, enthusiasm for the sport in general that is just really cool, and I love to see it. I'm really glad we got to talk, and hope we get to talk a bit more in the future.
Likewise.
So, with that, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Keep throwing those balls. Try not to get caught,
Yeah, I
and
will.
take care, everyone. We need that.
Yeah.